Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm your host, Albert, and this is episode 328.
What is a dragon's favorite kind of competition?
Oh, foot race.
A roast battle.
A roast battle?
Yeah, roast. Have you ever heard of roast battles?
No,
Oh, well then that
I don't
wasn't a
get
very
it.
funny joke. A roast
It
battle is
was
where
probably
you
a great one for other
do
people.
insult. It's where you do insults against each other.
Oh, I bet you there's people that are just on the floor laughing when they heard that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I doubt it. That may not have been a
I'm...
good joke. I thought it was funny. Well, what do you call a dragon who tells jokes?
uh, dangerous?
Laugh a lot. Sir, laugh a lot.
Sir laugh a lot. Okay. So, anyway, um, today we're talking about dragons, which is why Julius is making these jokes. Anyway, so today we're talking about Flamecraft. It's a game about dragons, really. It's about dragons in town.
Yeah, it's a very cute game. It is primarily a worker placement and resource management game where you are sending these dragon cards around town and sending yourself in the form of a dragon around town to be able to collect resources and use those resources to turn them in for spells and gain points. And the person who has the most amount of points when the game ends wins.
Exactly. Yep. And you're not evil, mean dragons. You're friendly, helpful dragons. Just
Everyone is friendly, helpful dragons. It is very cute in terms of its theme and art because it's all about they're like mini dragons. They're all human-sized dragons who have integrated into a town with humans. And so they all are sort of side by side. So the dragons all work together with like the bakers and the butchers and the shop owners and things like that.
and the game is just for the record, it's published by Cardboard Creations, designed by Manny Vega, art and illustration by Sindera Tang.
Cardboard Alchemy.
Cardboard Alchemy. Is that not what I said?
You said Cardboard Creations. It's Cardboard Alchemy.
Wow. Okay, where did I get that from? Yeah, Cardboard Alchemy. Um. Anyway, it's gonna be that kind of day, listeners. I'm sorry. I can't. I don't know what to say. So in that case, let's just jump forward in time, and we kind of did the summary. How about the components then?
Sure. So let's start talking about the components. So I I don't even know if there's a regular version at this point in time. I got mine off of Kickstarter, so mine is the deluxe edition. Albert, do you have a deluxe edition as well?
Not that I know of. Mine was a Christmas gift that I got last year
Ah,
from the friendly local game store.
what type of tokens do you have? Are they wood tokens or are they cardboard?
They are cardboard tokens.
So then I'll be able to talk about the deluxe edition and you can talk about the standard edition.
Okay.
The deluxe edition has wood resources for the different resources you can collect. So there's anvils, toast, crystals, potions, stakes, and leaves. And in my version, those are all wood resources. They're very nice. They're like meeple type things with some screen printing on them. There's a regular, it's a standard games tray. It's their new Y trays that
Hmm.
is included in the game to be able to hold and organize those tokens. But they're very nice wood tokens. Albert's, I assume, has cardboard chit circles.
Yeah,
Accurate?
exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Cardboard circles, different colors with a screen printed image on them. Yeah. But no tray for organizing anything.
Not nearly as nice in my opinion as the wood ones. I really, really like the wood ones. They're very pretty. They're very nice. Albert
Are
can
they
give his
shaped
comments
or
on
are
the
they
wood
also
ones.
round?
They're shaped. They're all shaped
Okay.
tokens. The anvils are shaped like
Nice.
anvils. It's like meeples. It's meeple type resources.
Gotcha. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I find my tokens actually are pretty small and a little hard to manage because they're so small.
Yeah.
So I do wish I had bigger shaped tokens.
I will say that the wood tokens included with the game, they are small. I don't find it particularly hard to use them because of their size, and I have big hands. I don't think it's a problem, their size. But the second print, or second edition, second version, I'm not quite sure. But there is now an optional ability to buy the extra large wooden resources to have
Ah.
even bigger tokens if you wanted that.
Would all that fit in the box? Well, I mean, it's the same size box, I assume.
So ours has an insert, a plastic insert designed to hold those wide trays and hold the coins and all the other stuff that are in it. You'd have to redo or pitch the insert to be able to afford an extra tray of tokens or some other method, but it would fit.
Yeah, mine is just a cheap cardboard insert that divides into generic slots, so it's pretty disposable, honestly.
Yeah, we have a plastic insert.
Nice.
So
Okay.
in addition, speaking of upgraded resources, so you can collect all these six different resources. Another thing that you can collect over the course of the game are coins. Coins are essentially a stand-in for just a point at the end of the game, but they can also be used over the course of the game for various actions or abilities, or even some recipes require them. So they're just another thing that you collect. Uh, they can be cardboard in Albert's standard version, or metal tokens in my deluxe version
Hmm. With a drawstring bag.
with the drawstring bag. Yep.
Yeah, no, I get a deluxe Ziploc bag in mine.
Oh, I only use the drawstring bag for storage. When we're playing the game, we just dump them all out.
Hmm.
But I mean, sure, a bag is fine, but it's not the bag is not what's important. The really nice metal
Right.
coins is
Yeah.
what's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The coins aren't used that much in the game. Like you said, they're wild cards and they're sort of resource for victory points that you could spend during the game. But I haven't found them that big a deal where I would feel inclined to upgrade them. The
Were you
resources,
inclined to
yeah,
upgrade the resources
yes, yes, definitely. Those I would. The coins,
to the extra large or the standard size ones?
I would do either. I would think. In the website, I only see extra large ones now, jumbo wooden tokens.
Well, yeah, probably.
So I don't. I wouldn't
I
have a
don't know.
choice in this.
I'm sure they're available somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
The next option is let's talk about the town mat. So it's a board essentially that holds the different stores. So there's going to be 12 stores that are created over the course of the game. The mat is a spot to hold all of them. The mat is also a spot to hold the decks of cards that are coming out. And also, there's a track that runs around to be able to track points. So, points when they're not in the form of coins, points are actually tracked on that by advancing a little heart meeple. There's one heart meeple for every player's color, and they go around this track on the board. The board it's surprisingly, it's not a board, it's actually a playmat. And the playmat, to my understanding, is standard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I like that it's a playmat. It's good for it to be a playmat because the board is actually narrow and very wide. It reminded me of the form function of Paladins in that it's another wide game. To be able to make that into a board would have probably required two boards next to each other
Or a lot of folding.
with a lot of folding. I'm very happy with it being a playmat. I think that's a good form solution for it, and I think that works really well to create that town aspect, especially when combined together with the cards.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
the only complaint about the playmat is that when you unroll it, the one end's always going to be kind of curled up, but it doesn't get in the way of the game at all.
yeah,
It's not a real issue.
and I think if you alternate which way you're rolling, it isn't too much of an issue. So
Hmm.
that's what I do. I also roll it so the black side is out when I roll it up. That way the
Really?
curve is down.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea. That's harder to roll that way, in my experience. I haven't tried it.
I don't
So,
disagree, but it works better for me.
yep. Okay.
That is the town mat. I mentioned the shops. The shops are big cards. So each town mat has a shop front, so like the front of the building. And then there's these larger cards. I'm not sure what size they are. I mentioned like Dixit or even different, but they're bigger cards. And each one of them is a shop. And the shops will all show what happens when you put a dragon there, what happens when you go there, things like that. They are all of this is going to have bright, colorful, pretty art. All of it looks really nice. So this is not an exception to that. The majority of the card space is taken up with the art for the spot. And it fits in really nicely. Same thing about it all being very clear, very easy to see across the table. The so that's in terms of the shop cards. There are also dragon cards. The dragon cards they're cards that, well, there's two types of dragon cards. I'm focusing specifically on the dragon cards that go to the shops. So there's 6 suits of dragon cards, one for each of the resources that I mentioned before. And those will determine when you pick a shop to go to, you'll get one resource for the shop itself and one resource for each dragon that's there, the different suits. So the suits are all very clear on what they are, but all of the different suits also have a special ability. So each suit has a special ability. Those special abilities are mentioned on each card, regardless of how many times it's present. Each card mentions what that suit does. I will say that text is small, is harder to read across the table. It's not at all iconized. Usually, when there's something on there, they try and iconize it to make it A, language neutral, and B, to make it easier to be able to see at a glance what it is. It's not iconized. There's not an iconized version of it on the player cards. There's a reference to it on the back of a player reference card. But if you're not familiar with what the suits do, you're probably going to be consulting that numerous times until you get into the course of the game, just because of the way that it's done. And it just requires reading it every time.
Yeah. Now it's not too huge an issue in that as the game progresses, you're gonna get dragons of all types on both sides of the board, so you don't have to reach as far to find it. You just gotta pick up the card and flip it over, the one that's next to you. But it is a little, it is definitely an inconvenience.
Yeah, I think that might be more true when you're playing with higher player counts, I think.
Hmm.
But even with higher player counts, often people will want to pick up the card that they're holding or don't remember that all the suits are the same and don't remember that they can reference it when you play with newer players. But in solo, I think less cards possibly come out, or less cards stay out, or less cards come out predictably, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the whole deck comes out in the solo game. Yeah, it's just a little bit slower.
Yeah,
But
but
like I
it
said,
comes in and
it's
out.
once a game gets going, then you're gonna have cards all over, regardless. At the beginning, the first few rounds, there's not as much out for sure.
I think it's a comment that I would have preferred for that to be more iconized. I would have preferred for the cards to have icons instead of text, and then have a text reference on the player cards instead of having it all be text. But I don't know. I suppose maybe I'm nitpicking, but it is something that, especially with new players, comes up. The other type of card, again, is the recipes that I've mentioned before. You're trying to get these resources to be able to cash them in for recipes, and those recipes are then assigned to the stores and increase the store's payout when you go there. The recipes are all they're pretty basic. It's pictures of all of the resources you get. You need to get all of them, and then you go and you turn them all in, and you get the points listed on it. It's all pretty clear. I think that possibly the only issue is that most of the recipes are that list. Some of the recipes are different in that instead of having a list, it gives you points for every pair of resources that you have. The way they iconize that is by having the 2 resources that you need in big, and then there's a tiny little text that says pairs. And again, rather
Yeah.
than iconizing that, it's just in tiny
Not
little
just
text and you have to figure it out.
not just tiny, but tiny and in a faint font.
Yeah.
It's like light gray on a tan background, on a light tan background, so it's a little bit hard to read.
Yeah. Again, I would have preferred more icons because it's so common that it comes up. An icon that means pairs of it or something along those lines. Something icon and bigger and bolder to be aware that it is pairs because again, if you don't explain that point to a new player, they're going to look and they'll be like, "Hey, I get the 2 things I need. I'm going to go trade in." And wait a second, it's weird because there's a list of possible points here, but now I've prepped for it, and I'm like, oh well, I feel like I've done a silly thing, and then they have to write
Hmm.
it back, and it's just happened to me a couple times with new players, and just it just didn't need to.
Yeah, and it's not complicated. It happens once, and they've got it, and that's it. Then it's over, and you move on.
Um, so that's all about the cards, I believe. Are there any cards I missed out, Albert, on this game with a bunch of
You
cards?
didn't mention the fancy dragons. There's another deck of dragons that give you points. That you're gonna start the game with a fancy dragon in your hand. You're gonna draw two, and you're gonna pick one to keep and discard the other one, right? And they get describe what kind of bonus they'll give you either when you play them or at the end of the game, depending on each dragon.
Yes. which
and
is an
they generally,
icon.
yeah, it's so, and it's in your hand, so it's text, so it's not a big deal to read it. I do, however, don't always find them clear to follow and understand,
Mm,
and aren't always in the rule book.
yeah, I, I I haven't seen that they're not in the rule book for the ones that are clear. They're all in the rule book because a lot of them need further explanation. I found.
Yeah, there was one that said you get points for each resource that you have less than two of. Well, so does, if I have zero, does that include that one, or do I have to have at least one? That wasn't clear to me, and there was
The rule
nothing
book
that
does say
specific.
yes.
I didn't see that in my rulebook.
Oh, it's there.
Like where it listed dragons, that one was never listed.
I'm pretty
So it
sure
must
it's
be
there.
some. Hmm. That was not yesterday, wasn't? They must have taken it out since you last looked. Well, anyway, so I mean, they are, some of them are a little confusing, and there's one that says you get resources for odd or even. Well, zero considered even. That was answered in there. I found it says yes, zero is even. So based on that, I decided that zero also counts.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Just because I would say it's obvious that zero is less than two.
It is, but there's many games where it says you got to have at least one for that to count,
Yeah, but it
and
doesn't say that
it,
here.
right. So when it doesn't say it, you're not sure what they intended. I would love it if it was clear about it. It does count or it doesn't count. Simple statement.
Maybe. Anyway, so that is those. Shall we move on to the last component, the dragons?
Before we talk about the last components, the I want to mention one more thing about all the cardboard components, the cards and the dragons. They're all unique. No two cards are the same. All the dragons, even though there's only six suits, and all the dragons of each suit are exactly the same in functionality, they went to the effort of making them look different and have different names. So they spend a lot of time in doing that,
Yeah,
and
a
all
lot
of
of
them
art.
are, they're all cute. Like a lot of the shops, the names are puns, like Touch a Glass for a glass shop. Scale Mail Post, right, is another one. Um, Draconic Tonic just sounds fun. The what's the one that I like? The Nunya's Beeswax.
So cute.
Yeah, they're cute names, and all the dragons, they have names that match the suits. So, like for example, the green suit that has the symbols of leaf. One of the dragons is named Twig. So I thought that was a really nice touch that they went to that effort to make every single card unique. Same for the, not, they're not spells, but the recipes. Again, they all have unique titles. So beyond that, the wooden bits. From my point of view, the wooden bits. From your point of view, more wooden bits.
Well, I'm actually going to comment about that, but go ahead.
The so you get two different wooden sets of things. You get the dragon to mark your, where you go in the town to represent your character, and a little wooden score token, little tiny symbol with a spiral on it, and one sided is for 0 to 50, and the other's for 50 plus points.
Oh, wait, what? Yours is a symbol with a spiral on it? Oh, interesting. You should have wooden heart markers, do you not?
Oh, you're right. They are hearts. Why am I thinking? You know why I'm thinking spirals? Because a few minutes ago I was looking at the website, and you could buy a pink dragon, and it brings a heart, a spiral, not a heart, doesn't it?
Oh, let me mention about the pink dragon in just a minute. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But yes, so you have wooden heart markers and you also have wooden dragon meeples. The dragon meeples are used to send yourself around the board and figure out where it is that you're going for your action. If you go share some with someone else, you have to pay the resources. It's fine, but they are dragon meeples to send around the board. Now, then, as opposed to many of the other things, all of the wooden dragon meeples are identical. They look the exact same. The hearts all have a unique, a unique silk screen to their types. Like the bread is a riff on the bread and the leaf, etc. But the dragons are all the same. Um, in the deluxe version, in addition to having both of those components, we also have miniatures for each of the different dragon types. They're not all the same, and they're miniatures of specific dragons in represented the other cards. I don't remember which ones specifically they are, but they're like named ones from the other ones from the cards, and so they are actual dragons from the game. They all look unique. They're all very nice, adorable miniatures. Which, when you pull them out, you're then, well, what am I going to do with the dragon meeples and why are they included? And the answer is they stay in the box consigned there forever.
Yeah, fate worse than death if you're a meeple.
Yeah, lost to the ages.
So that's interesting. And so on the website, you could buy the box of the miniatures, and it brings all 7 colors. But you could also buy a box of just the pink that brings the wooden dragon, the heart shape corner with the spiral on it, which is what was confusing me, and a pink miniature, which is different from the one in the box.
I do believe, by the way, on the website, it's the Series 2 version of the miniatures.
Oh,
So it's
there's
a
a
new
series two.
version of the miniatures.
Oh, you're right. I see now. Series two. There it is.
Yeah, so it's a new
Huh.
version of the miniatures. If you wanted all the thing, you can get the new version of the miniatures. I just have the old version of the miniatures.
Ah, and
So
you get a new card to go with it, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a new card to go with it. Yeah, no, it's they're dragons representing the old ones. You get the same cards, but they're
Okay.
now directly they are even more reminiscent of the original ones because like they have bread and meat and things like that. They're very very strongly reminiscent.
Okay.
So that is those meeples. You mentioned about the pink meeple. If you find it, got it, backed it, whatever method, there is a pink meeple which is represented the fancy dragons. It's that other suit with the ones that give you just points either during the game or at the end of the game. It is the fancy dragons. Um, with those, the easiest way to have gotten your hands on a pink meeple, pink dragon, is by completing a set of puzzles that were going on during the Kickstarter campaign.
Oh.
And I'm going to comment about this because there are some shenanigans that some publishers use to be able to draw backers in. One of the ones that I've seen more and more recently is the idea of bid $1 or pay $1 now to secure VIP treatment and get stuff like this during the campaign. Where if you buy $1 before the campaign, then your pledge will be automatically upgraded or whatnot, or whatever have you. I really dislike that one,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand why it's a good psychological tactic to work on people, but I dislike it. This one is another similar psychological tactic because it creates more engagement with it, lets people get theoretically a completely free thing, and also commonly has discussions between other people as you're looking for puzzle hints or solutions, or you're sharing the hints and solutions so that you can tell someone else, hey, if you're interested, here's how you get the free thing and just follow this and this step. It's another sneaky tactic to draw people's eyes, I feel like, to this. It's not a sneaky tactic I've seen anyone else use, and I think it's a good sneaky tactic. I'm I'm, I'm in
At least
support
you
of it.
get something out of it. Yeah. I don't like things like that. Yeah, I mean, it builds excitement. It gets people talking about the game more, and that draws even more people in, right? So it's a great marketing idea. But boy, I hate stuff like that. That would turn
Yeah,
me off on a project.
I mean, I think it's better than some of the other ones. It's not an abusive sneaky tactic, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. Van Ryder did one recently with the Final Girl season 3, where everybody that backed it above the minimum level, like at the 2 higher tiers, we're gonna get an extra expansion. It wasn't gonna be free, and they never said it would be free. So you didn't, if you didn't want it, you didn't have to pay for it. But you got an extra one, and the more people that backed it, the cheaper it became. And so there was a little bit of FOMO there, and a little bit of excitement and desire to bid more just to be able to get the free thing. And I fell for it, and I got it.
Yeah, these tactics work, but I just wanted to mention it.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Well, you could still get them now after the fact, so
Oh
you
yeah,
don't
you
have to
just have
feel
to
like
pay
you
for it.
missed out, which I do appreciate. Yeah, you do have to pay for this stuff, and it isn't all that cheap. I mean, the deluxe things, if you got it now, right? The tokens are $32, the coins are 25, the miniatures are another 25.
Oh yeah, you can get all the deluxe stuff. It's another $75. Just get a bag with all the deluxe stuff.
Oh, do they have that? See, I don't see that on the
Yeah,
website. Did
it's
you
there.
get the coasters and the stickers and
We
bookmarks?
did, and they are scattered amongst our house and various detritus because they were cute and adorable, and we don't know what to do with them and feel bad throwing them away.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a sticker recently in a Christmas card, and I had no idea where they got this Flamecraft sticker from, but I was happy and I put it in my box with the game, and now I know where it's from.
Yep.
I haven't figured out what to do with it yet, so it lives in the box for now. All right, so we've talked plenty about components. We haven't even gotten to the gameplay yet, and we're like hours into this podcast already.
So let's jump into the gameplay then, Albert.
All right, and before gameplay theme, does it feel like you're running around a town being a good dragon? And
Oh, absolutely. Yes, the cute art, the elements that are pulling it in, the sharing of the resources. I mean, it achieves its point
yes,
very
I
well.
agree. Yep. All right, that theme's done. Rules.
Oh yeah, just briefly in the rules. I think we've commented about this before. The rules are fine. They go in and explain everything in the rules clearly. There's a reference in the back for what all the various things do. There's a specific call out on how the solo rules work. I think
Mhm.
it's all fine. I think it all explains it. So not really a whole lot to discuss on that.
Other than keep in mind, I already complained that not everything seems to be referenced in the rules, not all the abilities.
Enough is
But
referenced to make me
it,
happy.
okay, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's really good, well made. It's really good.
So, in the gameplay, the basic loop that you're in is you're going to run around and get resources and trade those resources in to get points. It reminded me kind of many of the Charterstone people games, but there's two basic types of turns that you take. You can take a turn where you're either gathering resources or where you're enchanting resources. On your turn, you will send a dragon to a shop. If there's someone at that shop, you have to give them a goodie because you're friends with them and paying them off for being there. Maybe a little bit of a theme misstep, but yeah, we're all friends. So you pay them something for the fact that you're imposing on their space. And then you gather resources. You get a resource for the shop, the resource for every dragon, and a resource for every enchantment on that shop. Then you get to run any special abilities on the shop. There are 6 starting shops. Those shops have no special abilities. But over the course of the game, you're going to be having more shops come out. Whenever a shop is fully filled, you'll put another one from this deck of shops, and those shops will have abilities. They are often huge abilities, game
Hmm.
changing abilities, and you are very much encouraged to use them. But on the other hand, the starting shops give you more resources because they're filled with dragons and enchantments. So push comes to shove on whether or not you want to go with which one. Once you've completed that, your turn is done. You have your resources. In order to turn in those resources for points, you will instead enchant. So begin with the same thing. You go to a shop, and then instead of collecting resources from that shop, you will pick one of the recipes that are splayed out in the center area, turn in all of the goods you want, slide that recipe under the shop, enchanting it, enhancing it, and get the points or whatever benefit, because sometimes it gives you coins or dragons or other things on the recipe. But you get whatever benefit comes out of that recipe. And then you get to fire each dragon, which I neglected when I was talking about the gather, because when you gather, you can choose one dragon to fire, which is use the suit ability of that dragon. When you enchant, you get to use the suit ability of each dragon in the shop, which theoretically would encourage you to want to do those on those earlier shops that are fully filled, again pushing people towards the earlier shops to get more resources for it and adding to that push and pull dynamic as you're playing through that. You'll fire them up, you'll run all of their suit abilities. Sometimes that can trigger more suit abilities, play through that, and then that ends your turn. The gameplay loop is dead simple. You'll keep running that loop until either you run out of enchantments in the deck or you run out of dragons in the deck. Either one of those will trigger the end of the game, finish up everyone else taking a turn, and then total up your points. Often I've found when I'm playing the gameplay, once everyone figures out what to do, you can take your turn and then be like, okay, do I have enough resources to enchant? Yes, I do. And then by the time you figure that out, your turn is back up to you. That's how fast the gameplay loop can start going when you're playing multiplayer. When you're playing solo, it's the same kind of thing. When you're taking your turn, you run with it. You move so fast for how the turn is, none of which detracts from the strategic element, the decision making space of it, even though it's a very simple loop with those things. It's a very satisfying loop
Hmm.
between playing that out, getting those resources, building what you need to run what you need.
Yeah. The solo games AI is so quick too that you play the turn and you're like, wait, it's my turn again already. That came up so fast. It goes really smoothly, really quickly.
Yeah, the solo AI, just to briefly go over how the solo AI works, it's very simple. You take a turn, and then the solo dude takes a turn, and he's really sort of playing as two dudes, is the way it's set up. But
Hmm.
essentially, you'll reveal a dragon card from the deck, put it somewhere where it matches. If it matched, then move a dragon around, which is going to make you spend more stuff if it's there. And if it can do any enchantments, if it has a matching enchantment out, it enchants the shop and keeps going on from there. It's going to continue running around throwing out dragons. There's going to be all the dragons out by the time it's done, and that's really it. It's just throwing out more stuff, and your goal is to get as many points as you can. It is a beat your own score type, so he's not getting any points. All he's doing is putting out more stuff over the course of the game, and potentially sniping stuff away from you if you had a enchantment that you were looking to, or essentially a recipe that you were looking to spend resources on.
Yeah, like a human player, he does get in your way here and there,
He most definitely does.
or they do, because there's six of them really, five of them.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like it's only one. It's just moving all the dragons around.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm gonna go to this shop. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna do something, and then suddenly, by the time you get to that shop, there's now two dragons there because you waited a turn too long, and it filled up, and now you got to spend two resources, and suddenly you don't have everything you needed for that action, so now you got to wait yet another turn.
Or the more frequent thing that happens to me is just at random, it grabs an enchantment that I was going to be grabbing next turn.
That's a yes, yeah. So there,
That
there
yeah,
is, and that could be game because sometimes you look and you say, "Oh, I really want to cast this enchantment. There's two of that color. I got some time. I don't have to rush." Because when they go cast enchantment, you pick the one that it casts of the matching color.
yeah.
Right. So yeah,
So
it's very gamey and well, not very gamey, but it's gameable.
so I had discussed, just to summarize my opinion on this, on the multiplayer game mode. I think the gameplay is very strong and very dynamic. There's a lot of decision points to make while keeping the game moving easily and flowing. It's challenging, it's rich, it's dynamic, but it's also simple. It's easy to understand, it's easy to execute. It plays on both of those elements at the same time and does a really good job of it while looking beautiful while it's doing it. I would say that probably the biggest nitpick I have is over solo, because when you're playing solo, what in the normal game, you set up just a random set of shops, taking one from each suit, then three from the
Hmm.
regular ones, and you play it that way. And then just you get to have all of the fancy dragons out. When you're playing solo, according to the rules, you have to have a specific set of 10 shops in your shop deck and a specific set of dragons in your dragon set. And according to the rules, until you win a game with a specific set of things having happened, you don't get to have the ability to change that. It'll be the same thing every time unless you achieve an achievement. And when you achieve an achievement, you have to write it down theoretically on the rule book, which no, not happening. Um,
Right.
but
That's my
yeah,
problem with it there.
yeah,
That
there
right in
is a
the rule book.
printable. There is a printable that you can theoretically print off and put it on
Yeah.
separate, but yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
also the solo card on the back, you could write it there instead if you don't want to write it in your rule book. But
I won't
again,
do
say
that
just
either.
just as bad.
Yes, I would print off the printable thing, but it stays the until you achieve the achievement. That setup remains the exact same, and the setup is so much harder when you have to go through, sort it out, figure out which ones it is. It's frankly, having played enough times to have unlocked some of the achievements per the rules. If you have a couple of them in, and you're like, well, I want to change things up. I want to replace out these shops. Well, you literally have to first build the basic one, and then you have to start switching out which ones to which one, because then it's like a list of which ones you add and where they go, and which ones switch to where and how and which and
It's kind of like the experience of it's kind of like experience of learning the a solo game by first having to learn the multiplayer game and then read the rules to see how that changed. Similar kind of concept, and it's this. You, I don't like this either, Julius. This is gonna be my one complaint about it too. It's only an issue if you're gonna be switching between multiplayer and solitaire, because if you're gonna do the if in my mind it's a campaign that you're playing through in solitaire mode. If you're only gonna do that or do that for 2 weeks and not play the multiplayer version in between, you could set aside your decks and put them in a bag separate from everything else. When you unlock an achievement, swap those cards out and keep your again your deck separate from the rest of the stuff. So then it'd be easy to keep going that way. But if you now want to play multiplayer, you got to mix everything back in, and hopefully you wrote down what you had, and then you could sort it back out again later on after the next time you're ready to play. So it doesn't work that way. It's not as satisfying. If you're doing it solo only, then I think it's fine. You'll just switch it out, and it's actually I think it's an interesting idea, the campaign with the achievements, because when you have to get at least 78 points, which I haven't done yet, and when you do, you can unlock up to 2 achievements. Each of the achievements has different goals. Like, so if you collected, I don't know, if you have these many resources at the end, or if you have this other met this other
no,
criteria,
it's
whatever,
not
you can unlock
resources at
different
the
ones.
end. It's how many dragons out in town. Like
It's it all
it's not
okay,
anything
I don't
in
remember.
your yeah, it's not anything in your thing. It's stuff in town and in shops and out there. I don't think it's anything looking through it. I guess there is a few, but the majority of them are involved in town.
Okay, yeah. So there's a bunch of them that 6 of them that are like, if you have 6 red dragons in town, if you have 6 purple dragons in town, so
Yeah.
on. Each of those is an achievement. There's also achievement for having certain number of shops in town. Do I have all 12 shops in the town? Because the game could end before you get all 12. Or do I have 2 shops with this symbol? Anyway, the point being is, if you met more than 2 of the achievements, you still choose which 2 you unlock. You can only unlock up to 2. So so as you're playing, the game could progress in a different order. The first time you play through the campaign versus the second time, and I think that seems like that could be potentially interesting. I haven't definitely haven't played it anywhere enough to do that, and I don't know that it will because of the
I
the whole switching it out.
I would have preferred if their solo mode would have been like, hey, if you don't want to play a campaign, play the game. And we have a little icon on the cards, like we've seen on some of the other things. There's a one with a slash mark through it for the ones that just don't work solo. If one of those comes up, discard it, replace it, or just if you feel like it, take it out of the deck to begin with, which is not something I'd ever do. But just like mark all the ones that don't work in solo, and then let me play without the campaign because the campaign it's annoying for me to run through.
And are there cards that don't work solo, or is it just that they wanted to limit it to something basic and make you progress through it?
Yeah, there are cards that do not work solo.
Okay.
That do not work outside. Yeah, that do not work solo. Yeah, because there's many ones that are like, hey, if you have the most resources at the end of the game, you're like, well, I'm the only one, so yay, I have the
Okay.
most. Like, there's a lot of those. So yeah, there's quite a fair number of them that just don't work so well solo. And because it's a limited card pool, you never even see those, possibly never even realize that they're not being included.
Yeah, I just haven't seen those yet. At least not recently. So you could, in theory, just shuffle them all together, and if you draw a card that just doesn't work, discard it and draw another one, and play that way, and ignore the campaign.
Which is the house rule of how I do it.
Yep. Okay.
But then I have to
And a
realize it. It's
shame.
so much easier if it's an icon that I can just look at and see.
Yeah. I do like the idea of the campaign. I do think it's pretty neat and pretty clever. Just again, switching between solo and multiplayer complicates that. I mean, and not too much because you could write it down. I mean, I know you have issues with writing stuff down if you play on the Saturdays, but
Right.
other than that, somebody could write it down and keep track of it on a little sheet of paper, what they have, and as they unlock things, it tells you, oh, take this one card out and replace it. Take the dragon out and replace it with a different dragon. Well, you could just cross them off the list and add the new one on the list.
Yeah.
And so it's not hard to do, but I don't know. It annoys me that I have to. I don't know why, but it does annoy me. Otherwise, it's a fun game. It really is. The resource management and all that is fun. The running around town, the trying to find really good combos and whatnot, or not combos, but abilities that you could manage by. Oh, if I go here first and then go there, and then I could do this for a bunch of points. That's satisfying.
That's true. So I think we're
Uh,
both giving it a really high recommendation. Accurate?
yeah, I'd say so. Yes.
Yeah. The game is beautiful and plays very nicely, very well. So yes, definitely a high recommendation from me.
What I'll say is I haven't played it a whole lot. I don't know how much longevity it would have for me. But I have enjoyed it. I've played it 2 times solo, 2 times multiplayer. And it's been fun every time.
I don't have a strict count, but definitely a lot more than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got the fancy components. That just makes it more exciting to pull out.
That is true. So, Albert, what do you call a dragon who's really good at the game?
A winner?
Talented.
Talon. Okay, talon. I get it, like a talon. Yes.
Yay, I got that one that time.
Just barely.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We love feedback, so we love hearing from you. You can reach me at julius@oneplayerpodcast.com or JLBird on BGG, and Albert can be reached at albert@oneplayerpodcast.com or Fractaloon on BGG. Our website is oneplayerpodcast.com with the number 1, and we're also on Twitter at oneplayerpodcast. The intro music is copyright Angus, can be found at jamendo.com. The transition music is copyright by Dan El Duce Pancaldi, whose page is at donpancaldi.com. The One Player Podcast is protected under a Creative Commons share-alike license. Thanks for listening.